Welcome in to the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard A. the Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Hello.
It is July 5th, 2022. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, where we post videos. Patreon.com/the Gaming Discourse, where you can support us, support the channel. And you get all kinds of perks like early videos and Discord server access and stuff like that. So check that out. We usually record on Monday nights. We're recording on Tuesday night. July 4th off because we're professionals. I don't know. We do have news. We'll be talking about God of War and Monkey Island, some stuff about Xbox, and some stuff about the Netherlands and Lootboxes. So we have a couple different things to go through. I ate tacos for dinner, and it's not going well. So the tacos were delicious, but with great deliciousness comes great responsibility. Connor, what games have you been playing?
Well, I've been playing a little bit of Oblivion, a little bit of NCAA 2009. Oh, we played today.
Yeah, and again, it's literally the games we were playing hours ago as we're waiting.
But I also got a chance
Hey.
to play Europa Universalis 4 this past week.
Okay, cool.
Yes, and I've just been doing some good job, just some achievement hunting, just getting some out of the way that. As I'm approaching 1,000 hours in this game, I'm like, why don't I have this achievement yet? Why don't I have the Form Russia achievement yet?
That seems like it's an incredibly difficult achievement.
It's really not.
Oh, it isn't?
No,
okay.
you can do it within the first 100 years of the game.
All right. I don't know anything about how Russia came to be, but
Yeah,
I always imagined it'd be kind of complicated, but I guess not. All right, cool, sweet.
Well, it's not like you don't have to have the full expansion of Russia because they didn't do that.
What if
right
it
away.
was literally you had to play as tectonic plates?
I don't think that'd be Europa Universalis then.
It didn't mean form Russia the country and then form Russia the continent. That'd be kind of funny. Anyway, sorry.
Anyway,
anything else?
No, that's really it. Just sticking around in NCAA with you.
Okay, Richie.
Been playing a little more Vampire Survivors. And I haven't played in a couple days, but the last time I did play, I was on a level called the Library. And all of your levels in Vampire Survivor are seemingly endless big squares. Like you kind of go around, and eventually you can get a map that'll show you where points of interest are. And the library is just horizontal. You only go left and right. This provides really fun gameplay to where if you choose a character that has kind of an AoE that bounces back and forth, you can kind of just set yourself up for automatic success in some ways. And so I chose this character. I can't remember their names because I don't look at their. I just pick them and I'm like, go. So I don't remember their name, but they throw it's the same item from Castlevania. It's a diamond, I think it is, but it's you throw it and it just bounces back and forth.
Okay.
Just kind of it hits the angles of all of the walls, and then it goes all over the place. Eventually, you can level up all of these things. When you get a treasure chest or when you just level up, you can choose one of your abilities to just level up there. If you choose abilities enough or choose two separate abilities, eventually one of those weapons can evolve. So I got to the point where I had garlic, which provides me with a circle around my body, and it hits anybody who tries to come into my vicinity. The Bible, which spins around you every now and again, it'll go away after a couple seconds, but then it will once you get more Bibles, there'll be 4 or 5 of them just kind of spinning around. So I have a constant circle of just don't touch me. And then I have axes that kind of just shoot up and kind of come down like a water spout, just and then I have my diamond that's going all over the place. I got to the point where I evolved my axes to where they turned into scythes.
Oh, neat.
And so instead of them going in an arc, they started going in a spiral. And they do that once. And not only do they damage enemies, they push them back. Because eventually, each level has a 30-minute time limit. So when you pass the 30 minutes, you beat the level. or you die beforehand. But that last minute or the last 30 seconds, they only send boss enemies at you at extremely high frequencies. So I hold myself up in the library to where I have to force enemies to funnel through, because eventually you have like and stuff. Enemies funnel through, and I'm just standing there while like things are like I'm kind of moving left and right sometimes, because an enemy can get it too close, and so you kind of get nervous and you're like, ugh. I got to the point where I got to my 30 minutes. Turns out there's a hidden minute after that where you are stalked by death, and he beelines right for your ass. Like there's a death that has a green cloak on, and he kind of just comes at you, and you can take him out, and he'll drop like a treasure chest for you. But this one has a red cloak, and it's like he moves in the blink of an eye. He just, like a bat out of hell, out of nowhere, just from the left side, comes straight at me. And I had this ability, thankfully, where if kind of a cane, like if you shoot it, it's a straight line. If it hits anything in that straight line, it freezes them. So thankfully, I got to freeze him maybe 4 or 5 times, hoping that like my abilities would kill him or let me survive until 31 minutes. But I couldn't. And I was like 40 seconds away, but it was a bit nerve-wracking. But I love playing that, and it's just, it is that game. I need 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
Sure.
Then
that came out this year, right? That wasn't something that came out late last year?
Came out, I think, late last year, and it's an early access game still. So it's not actually out yet.
Okay.
But, so I've had fun with that. And then I started playing a game I've been waiting to play. It's called Them and Us. And it's on Steam. And it is we have roguelikes, and we have, other types of games that copy out Souls-likes and stuff like that. I don't think there's a phrase for this type of genre, but I guess I'm going to call it a Resident Evil-like, because it is a survival horror third-person game.
Ooh.
Styled exactly like the older Resident Evil games.
Oh, okay. So you have like the PS1 low poly type?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. It's all very modern graphics, but the fixed cameras.
Oh, okay.
You have the fixed cameras.
I see. Yeah.
You can actually choose both ways. Yeah, you can actually choose both ways to play. You can choose fixed camera, classic Resident Evil style, or you can have a third person over the shoulder style.
Okay, interesting.
So I chose to play the traditional way because I'm a fan of that type of aesthetic. And Them and Us is quite the entertaining mess, is what I'll call it. There's a lot wrong with the game, but I'm having fun with it. There is, thankfully, so you play as this woman, I believe her name is Alice. I can't remember, but she's in a mental hospital because she's trying to find Alicia, thank you. Trying to find her daughter, and it's one of those, your daughter doesn't exist type deals. So as you're being transported, the bus crashes and you wake up near a mansion. And so once you start exploring, there's zombies in the mansion. Things are going. It's very creepy. It takes place in like 1978 or 79. But you start off with 2 inventory slots, and everything, your menu, everything is just Resident Evil. It's just straight out of Resident Evil. Very inspired by it. But you start off with 2 inventory slots, and it's a bit annoying because they throw out a lot of things that you either want or need right at the start. So you can choose to leave things behind, which is great because you can't do that in Resident Evil. So if like I decide, I have this magazine clip, I'm going to leave it here. It stays where you drop it.
If you drop it on the floor.
Yeah.
So you can take like mental notes of where you drop something.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But they kind of, I don't want to say reveal their cards too early, but in Resident Evil, the classic games like Resident Evil 2, you're familiar with this, the diamond key, the club key, the spade key. Most of the doors that you immediately encounter have a key that goes to it. Whereas in Resident Evil 2 and other Resident Evils, that's not something that's immediate. It's just you eventually find something, and then it kind of like goes from there. So it's like right at the start, having all those there is kind of like, it gives me this like, well, I already know what to do. I need to find these things. Find one key, and then throughout this time, you only have a knife for the most part to take care of these creatures. And the knife is pretty powerful. And I eventually found, so I used that to survive a bit, and I eventually found a backpack which gave me all of my inventory slots. And I eventually found a gun. Problem is, as soon as you found the gun, it's like, okay, all the zombies are coming after you now. like all the places that zombies could come from, they are now coming from. So the pacing for it is just either immediate or
Interesting.
Right, but the game is still very fun and very entertaining. There's lots of pop-ins. There's lots of weird, like, I don't want to say control issues, but there is a certain type of feeling when you're playing a tank-style game, the tank controls, where you kind of have to, you can't move, you got to, like, move, and then...
Yeah.
She kind of skips. Like, it's not very precise at all. Like, they didn't get the programming right, so... I find myself when I can dodge around zombies in like the original Resident Evil games very easily. I can't necessarily do that here because like she kind of like stops, like she hits an edge. It's very tough to explain, but
Weird.
It's just kind of like you stop because you have to go this way or that way. I've died several times from zombies because I run out of bullets easy. Bullets don't seem to do as much as the knife does, which is strange.
Okay.
But I do like that right when you pick up the gun. Or no, you get a tutorial right at the beginning, and they tell you, they say, Alicia she grew up hunting with her dad, but she's not too familiar with guns. You might miss. So, like, they tell you that in the thing. So I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. They kind of take into account her experience. So I haven't missed any shots yet, but you can, in a arc motion, go from, like, low to high, like Resident Evil can.
Mm-hmm.
But in Resident Evil, it's only... downward, upward, or middle. This one you have a full like arc, pointing your gun, which is nice. So I get to the right angle and I try to shoot as much as I can for the head, but it takes a lot of bullets to bring down those zombies. And I watched some other gameplay of people playing it, and they're just like, and I'm like, crap. I guess I should just ignore these zombies. I haven't gotten terribly far into it. The game is really good looking, but with like the pop-ups and everything, it's just a bit like distracting. But I will say that whoever, I can't remember the studio that made this game, but of course I've never heard of them, but to produce a game of this sort of quality as it stands right now is quite impressive, and I do enjoy it. There are of course just weird things about it that it's kind of like Days Gone. Days Gone. Your experiences it. The weird things are kind of bringing it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas the weird things here for me, they do bring it down to an extent, but they're kind of charming because I know that this is a studio that is. They're just like independent guys, so it's more of an endearment than it is.
Okay.
A negative against them, which I find interesting. Approaching that mindset.
Okay.
But
cool.
It's a really cool game. It was on the Steam. I was waiting for it to go on sale because it's like $40, but it's $20 on the Steam sale, so I immediately grabbed it. Anyways.
Yeah, that genre has sort of exploded back into popularity over the past like 5 years.
Yeah, a little bit.
You have games that they mimic not only the claustrophobic camera angles, but also the low poly visuals of like the PlayStation 1. And then you have Tormented Souls, which is very much like Resident Evil, but Tormented Souls, the visuals were great. So it wasn't, it wasn't sort of a visual inspiration, but it was definitely a structural camera angle inspiration. So, and that's the thing about video games is like, there are certain genres or styles, or I'm not even sure how to put it, but just things that like will always work,
Yes.
And it's hard to, it's hard to compare it to like other art forms, but I'm sure there are things in the 1950s that worked in films that still work today. I don't know, but it's nowhere near as copy and paste, but that's not a criticism. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because when you play Resident Evil 2, the remake, and you play Resident Evil 2, the original one, how the camera works is not the camera. That's a bad example. When you play the Resident Evil HD remake and then the original Resident Evil, how the camera works is exactly the same.
Yes.
But it doesn't feel antiquated. It feels like a legitimate way you can make a game today.
Yeah.
You know.
It's kind of like filming a movie in black and white.
Yeah, I guess
it's it's a specific style.
That'd be a good. I think that'd probably be a good comparison. Yeah, but games have a lot of things like that. Okay, so
real quick, one thing that I find interesting about this game is that as a DLC for first person mode.
Yeah, there's I forgot about that first person mode. Yeah, I haven't used it because it was a deluxe pack with everything.
Yeah,
I haven't used it.
And they have a retro costume that makes your character just look like. I mean, it drops the poly count on the player character.
Yeah, there was actually this interesting thing. There was a TV I found in the game very very soon, like when you're playing it, and if you go up to it and check it, it's like, do you want to change the channel? If you press yes, like it goes all pixelated.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like, oh, okay. So it's kind of psychological, like in a way, and it's like, do you press it again? And you press it again, it kind of goes not black and white, but close to it. Like there's still like tints of color, and then when you press it again, it goes back to normal. So. I mean, I went back to normal because I was like, I don't want to stress myself.
Sure,
with this, so
yeah.
But yeah, they seem to have the right idea of what people are looking for in this type of game.
Yeah, so. And that's the thing is like you can mimic the structure and the pace of games like Resident Evil, and there's a market for that kind of survival horror, you know. And I'm sure I haven't found any. I don't know of any, but I am sure that if you made a Metal Gear Solid today, you know, with camera angles and the same type of structure to it, you could probably make yourself a successful game that a lot of people would enjoy, you know. Anyway,
and this is sorry to cut you off again.
No, it's cool.
This is their first game release.
No way, really. Tendo Games. Tendo Games.
It's their first release.
I wonder if that was a Kickstarter because I think they published it too.
Oh yeah, they're the devs and publishers. So
I wonder if that was like
possibly.
a Kickstarter or something. Okay, so
real quick, no, I'm joking. Sorry.
So I've been playing a little bit of Squad. I think just as an excuse to play Squad for a while, I'm going to end up making a video about Squad. So that's the next video I'm going to make. Is a video about Squad. I'm just going to make video so I can play a bunch. Man, Squad's new maps are awesome. There's a new map that it's an aircraft carrier, and
it's a small map.
No, it's pretty big. It's not just the aircraft carrier. It's an aircraft carrier that the Marines launch off of, and then the defending force is not on an island, but it's like the beginning of it's like a beach, but a river goes down the middle. Mm-hmm. So there's two halves to the map with a river going down the middle, and then there's the ocean in the front, right? And when you start off, it's freaking awesome. We started a game yesterday, and we got into a helicopter, and we were flying the helicopter over the ocean, and there were all the boats underneath us because there's these little inflatable boats that you can take as well, and some amphibious APCs and IFVs and stuff like that that go across. So it was a really sort of like a cinematic moment, and it's really cool to see everybody land, and you try and make a foothold because you have to build spawn points. So part of that is finding a place to land, creating the spawn points, and then you get a foothold, and then your team has to, figure it out from there. So yeah, a lot of fun. That Squad is just, it's a really simple idea. It's ultra realistic. It gives you all these different tools, and then it just drops a lot of the player friendliness. And it's just like, all right, do your best, Teamwork. And if you don't communicate, it's just, oh my God. The other day, okay, this is the greatest thing ever. So the other day, game starts, right? And we're all standing around base. And a bunch of the trucks are already taken up. I'm in a squad, and we don't have a vehicle. So I'm like, hey, why don't we get in a helicopter? And the helicopter can go drop us off. And the squad leader's like, oh yeah, it's a good idea. So we all get in a helicopter. Helicopters take off. We're flying literally 5 seconds. Helicopters collide in midair. Both squads wiped out. 10 seconds into a game. 10 seconds into a game. So not only do we have 2 squads down, both our helicopters are down 10 seconds into a game. Just some of the funniest shit ever. But anyway, so I'm going to be making a video about Squad. So stay tuned.
That aircraft carrier map, is the Logi truck now just a boat?
So there are APCs that are Logi trucks.
Okay.
And I don't know. I haven't played very many of them, so I don't know exactly how it works. But once you do get a foothold, there is a forward operating base spawn area that props up, but I think you have to capture a few objectives before that appears. And once that appears, I believe you get the conventional Logi truck.
Okay.
But it's really cool. And yeah, anyway, so I'm excited to do more of that. Yeah, and then just chipping away at Days Gone. It's still, the writing's very bad.
Sorry, I made the assumption earlier that like the negatives of like Days Gone seem to bring it down the experience to you. Is that right? Or
yes.
Okay.
I don't know why I said that.
I wasn't sure if I was making an assumption when saying it just based on how you've been speaking. I hate you.
Days Gone, I think Days Gone shows, because Naughty Dog makes their games look so easy, like, if that makes sense. Like a character dynamic. Like, it's so easy to write nice characters that have chemistry and bounce off one another, right? It's like, sure. And then you see Days Gone, and it's like, oh, wow, it's just the dialogue is unnatural in places, and characters have like different weird personalities. So, spoiler alert, minor spoiler.
There's zombies.
So, Deacon's best friend, Boozer, they ride together. They're sort of partners trying to survive or whatever. At the beginning of the game, Boozer gets injured, and so he has to take care of Boozer. His arm gets severely cut or something like that, and he starts to get sick. It gets infected. And later on in the game, minor spoiler, does anybody care here? No. Okay. Boozer ends up having to get his arm amputated, right? So Boozer, throughout the entire game, he goes from like, I don't know, pretty chill to then he starts to hallucinate because of the blood poisoning. And now, once he has lost his arm and you see him, now he's like a comic relief character. It's really weird. And I'm not sure if he's going to rebound. Like, he's just trying to stay happy because he lost his arm. Yeah. So he keeps making jokes. Like, hey, you going to give me a hand? Like, he makes little jokes like that to laugh at himself or whatever. And I don't know if the game is trying to build up to a point where he like breaks down or something. But it just doesn't feel consistent with the way his character has gone. There's a lot of, it's just hard to explain. There's a lot of dialogue, but it just doesn't jive. It's tough to put a finger on it specifically. There's a moment where you go to a town that was once a sort of a fort, but it had fallen years ago. And you're with a character who wants to show you the moment that the town collapsed. And it was because there were two different groups in this town trying to survive, and the two different groups ended up fighting and killing each other. And then the town, through that fight, the zombies got in and the town became uninhabitable. So he takes you to this building where the inciting incident happened, and you walk in and there's all these dead bodies, but there are like flies, right? And it's like, well, hold on. Like, wasn't this fight years ago? But the scene implies that it happened like a month ago, or something. And I don't know how long it takes for bodies to decompose, but it's just like a weird little detail, And they're like, he's like, Deacon's covering his nose to like hide the smell, but it's like, well, wasn't the collapse of civilization like years ago? Shouldn't this? I don't know. Anyway, but that's the thing, is there's a bunch of little tiny things like that I just don't. That just don't always make sense. And Deacon, the voice acting is just really weird. He inhales when he's finishing his lines sometimes, and it's really weird because it's something like, "Yeah, I'll go take care of that," like some really huge inhale, almost like it's a technique for voice acting that they accidentally left in or something, because it's not supposed to. I don't think it's supposed to be playing off that he's like out of breath. I don't know. There's just weird things like that. So Ben Studio really tried. You can really see the effort. You can really see the Last of Us inspiration there, the Naughty Dog inspiration there. But it just doesn't. It just doesn't just doesn't pan out. And yeah, and a lot of the missions are also I don't know. A lot of the missions, they're repetitive. And when I think about Last of Us, The Last of Us is good because there are little tiny set pieces,
Yeah.
So in Last of Us 2, you have a moment where it's like an open-ended map. But each place you go to in this map is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And then throughout the game, there are set pieces. You go into a subway, you're crawling through a forest, you're going through a ruined city, and you're sort of going through apartments and stuff like that. So, and through that, there is environmental storytelling. There's one really good part in Last of Us 2 where you have to go through an old newspaper building or newspaper offices, and that's the moment that the game introduces a new enemy type that like stalks you, and you can actually like see them peering around corners waiting for you to walk up to them so they can ambush you. And it's a really creepy moment. And that whole area is like the only time in the game where they do something for that long. And that doesn't, I don't know, Last of Us, Days Gone, it's like no matter what situation you're in, the zombies, you just sort of, you take care of them the same way. There's not a whole lot of tension. You shoot them in the face, or you stab them, or you hit them with your baseball bat, right, and it's fine. And when you see a gigantic horde, which is cool, you just stay away from it, So yeah, I'm saying stuff that I'm sure people have said a billion times since the game released. But the one thing that I keep thinking of is like, yeah, it's all right. But I think I'll probably finish it, and we'll see what happens. And yeah, we can hit that ad.
We want to give a massive shout out to the sponsors of this episode. They have been silently supporting us since the very beginning, and we felt it was time to give them some love. The like and share buttons have been at our side since episode 1 of the podcast. They can be found just beneath this episode. Please give them a click, it helps us greatly. If you're feeling lucky, click the bell icon to enter for a notification anytime we post new content. You may be surprised by what you get.
God of War Ragnarok and the devs from the new Monkey Island have spoken out after harassment from fans. When's the last time I said I hated gamers?
It's been at least
You say it every show.
I try to. I got a reputation.
You sort of manifest it.
Yeah.
You are. As soon as somebody walks into your store, you're like, "What the fuck do you want? Damn it! Do you play fucking video games?"
Do you have this particular copy of Smash Brothers with this serial number? Like, fuck you.
But yes.
Anyways, this started in a blog post by Ron Gilbert, the creator of Monkey Island, who posted a comment saying, quote, "I'm shutting down comments. People are just being mean, and I'm having to delete personal attack comments. It's an amazing game, and everyone on the team is very proud of it. Play it or don't play it, but don't ruin it for everyone else. I won't be posting any more about the game on my blog. The joy of sharing has been driven from me." End quote. It appears to have been in response to people complaining about the art style, calling it objectively ugly, among other things. I like the art style.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second.
Anyways, a few days later, I missed it. I didn't realize you were grabbing that name for me, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to pronounce it correctly. Estelle Tigani.
Right. A cinematics producer on God of War Ragnarok, tweeting, quote, "Pro tip, sending me dick pics asking for the God of War Ragnarok release date will not, in fact, get me to reveal the release date." Also, I believe, I don't have the quote here, but
Corey Barlog tweeted out
like stuff. Yeah, that was its own other interesting situation as well.
So there's like two different halves, two different things there. I don't want to say that, to throw them in together as if they don't matter, but they are sort of similar circumstances. Yeah, so the Monkey Island thing, so I went to the comments and I was like, okay, I want to see what, and people when people complain about things on the internet, one of the things I try to do is I try and see what they're complaining about. And these people, it wasn't just, I'm not a fan of the art style. People were being really like angry about the art style. Mm-hmm. And to call the art style objectively ugly, that's like hugely loaded. So I went and I watched the trailer, and I don't know. I don't know if it's people prefer the original art style over the new one or what. But when I watched so I'm missing the context of growing up playing the original Monkey Island game. Okay, because I didn't.
Right.
But when I watched the trailer, I thought, yeah, this looks like a video game. Like I didn't think it was necessarily. I thought it looked cool. Like I didn't think it was necessarily horrible looking. I didn't think it was some of the coolest art I've ever seen in my life.
It kind of it just plain and simply looks like all the other point and click adventure games that are out right now. And it's kind of like, if you look at animation right now, a lot of animations are very similar to each other, like Adventure Time, Steven Universe, stuff like that. They all have the same type of style. I'm not saying they all look the same, but like, for instance, Double Fine, particularly, who makes a lot of point and click adventure games like Broken Age, After Party, the new Monkey Island, they all have that kind of paper, like, your elbow is attached with a joint here that kind of like goes like a puppeteering type of look.
Rayman Legends is what it kind of reminded me of, the Rayman games.
A little bit of that, which the original Monkey Island games had this very like animated pixel type view to it. I mean, all the LucasArts games specifically, which Ron Gilbert, former LucasArts worker. So I think that there are diehard Monkey Island fans who, I'll use the word, prefer that art style.
Yeah. But I just didn't see. I didn't see the. I don't know. That's like online fan culture stuff. Is people just all the time? People just hate that. I've been watching the show Succession, and there's an actress in the show that people don't like. And I watched the entire 3 seasons, and I was like, oh my God, it's great 3 seasons of television. And I went through the Reddit because I was laughing at memes, because that's one of my favorite things to do, just going and looking at the memes on Reddit to laugh. And trust me, Succession is just chock full of memes. But I found a bunch of posts complaining about this actress, and I was like, and I remember thinking, and people were like complaining about how obviously horrible her acting was. And I was just like, I watched the entire show, and not for a split second did she stand out as a poor actress. So it's like, I don't know. People get into communities with other like-minded people, and I feel like a hive mind develops, and they see things that they take as obvious, but it's only obvious because when you're constantly on a subreddit talking with other people that agree with you, I'm just describing bubbles at this point. You seemingly think that it's obvious when in fact it isn't. But again, the context with Monkey Island, I think we're getting too deep into this. And the thing with God of War, I don't know how we stop people being douchebags. I don't know how we do it.
The internet doesn't help.
The internet doesn't help. Social media doesn't help.
Yeah.
But I think one way is to talk about it, I guess. Complain about it, but I don't know a single rational person who would be like, well, I understand why they would do that. So it's just like, how do you, without just repeating yourself, say, yes, this is wrong? And I always think about that thing that Jeff Kaplan said like 4 years ago on the Blizzard forums, where he's just like, we are scared of talking to fans because Jesus Christ, you say one thing wrong, and you unleash just a torrent of stuff. I'm paraphrasing. And yeah. And again, this is another discussion that we had a few weeks ago, but and it's going to make me sound pretentious, and I don't care, but it have multiple interests. I don't know. Listen, I want God of War Ragnarok to come out as much as the next person. And yeah, it sucks that we don't have a release date yet. I'm excited for the game, but it's just like, I also understand it'll come out eventually.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
It's sometime in the future it'll release, and we'll play it.
Do something else until then.
I don't know. Does that make me sound like a horrible person to just do something else with your life?
Sound like a normal person.
I don't know. And it's not necessarily wrong to go online and to be excited about God of War Ragnarok, but when it gets to harassment, when your passion gets to harassment, it's like, is there literally nothing else you could do?
There's 800 billion other video games. Go play one.
There are so many things you could do in life. Why sit around and get that worked up over one? It just doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know how we solve this. I don't know if we can. But it is the issue of our age. Harassment online. Do you guys know how to fix it?
No, I mean, not since the beginning of the internet. It's not something that can be avoided. It will happen, unfortunately, but it's just gotten worse due to, people essentially being raised by the internet now.
Yeah.
And I've encountered some people that have, and it's weird because there's literally no social there for them to kind of realize.
Well, there's the phrase always online, right?
Yeah. So
something popped into my head, but yeah, if I were a game developer, I don't even know why I'd be on social media. That's just me. But like at this point, I don't know how you could when I tweet things out, the only person that might like it is my mother, and that's it. So it's just like, I am not going to get harassment. But when I scroll Twitter, I get anxiety over like other people reacting to things. So it's like, I don't know how people can take it, especially for someone like Cory Barlog, who every day logs on and there's a torrent of dudes that are like, where's the game coming out? And Cory Barlog, let alone be a minority of some sort or somebody that's marginalized, because that's exactly what people will go for. So I don't see the upside at this point of being on social media. We should all get off social media. That's my thing. Xbox head Matt Booty defends working conditions at Bethesda. In an all-hands meeting last week, Matt Booty, head of Xbox Studios, responded to employee concerns regarding working conditions at Bethesda. When asked to address Kotaku's recent story about crunch on Fallout 76, which we discussed, Booty said, quote, "The challenge with a lot of these articles is that they look backwards, sometimes pretty far back in time. Crunch culture is, if you go back 10 years ago, it's a little unfair to put that on one studio. It was just part of the industry. I don't say that to justify it. I'm just saying that it was part of the culture of the industry. I literally slept under my desk early in my career, and we looked at that like a badge of honor," end quote. Kotaku acquired a recording of the meeting and was able to independently verify that quote. So I guess that's verbatim exactly what he said. So does it matter if there was a standard? If it was a standard, can't you just say it was wrong? Like, I feel like that's the easiest thing to say. And
I think a lot of this is they've admitted it was wrong, but then the internet happens and people just harp on about it. And it's like, okay, we've addressed this. Yes, it happened. It happened 10 years ago. It was part of the industry at the time. We're trying to change that. Focus on the fact that we're trying to change that rather than 10 years ago it hadn't changed yet.
Well, so what?
I'm not saying it shouldn't be addressed, but again, going back to the previous story, when, people start to latch onto things and just lay into developers about it for stuff that happened 10, 15 years prior, if it's not like this massive, I'm not saying that it's not wrong, but it's like, it was part of the industry. 20, 30 years ago, the music industry was entirely different. The techniques that were used then that are less than favorable to use now are no longer used, but people don't, really address them. They just realize, yes, those were wrong at the time, but they were how things were done at the time. We've changed since then.
So I don't think that means you can't report on it.
No, I'm not saying
again, I think it's as simple as, because I don't know, this quote is interesting. Because it does come across a little confused, I think. And we don't have the entire minutes there, so we don't have the entire transcript of what he said. But because I think it's as simple as, it was wrong and we shouldn't have done that. I think that's all you need to say. It doesn't, just because it happened 5 years ago doesn't mean it's not newsworthy. And also it was context into why Fallout 76 was such a disaster. Because it was made in under those conditions and stuff like that, that added to the game being a buggy. It was a buggy mess. Bethesda games, joke, whatever. But it was also, relatively speaking, even for Bethesda, it was a buggy mess when it released. And it's also a look into the inner workings of a studio, especially somebody like Todd Howard and how Todd Howard operates. Because in that story, we got the story about, I think it was this one where they called what Todd Howard did seagulling, where he just flies in every now and then and shits on everything and flies away. And that was a little anecdote about how things worked at Bethesda. So it's not, I don't know, it's not that, because like if you ask me what's the point of, if a developer came to me and was like, hey, 5 years ago at my studio, we were crunching and it was crazy. And then I wrote a story and I sourced it. And then somebody came up to me and said, hey, what's the point of you reporting on something that happened 5 years ago? And I'd say, well, first of all, people were victimized. So they want their story told. And there's no reason that they shouldn't have their story told because it just happened a few years ago. And I think and second of all, I think it's important to understand the history of how things happened. And it doesn't matter how long ago it happened. I don't know. And even if it's a story that's been told 1,000 times over and over and over again, right? Because I still think we learn bits and pieces of how the industry operates, and that makes us better for understanding that. Just like with the Anthem story, part of the problem with Anthem was the crunch, but also we understood it was also Frostbite, specifically how Frostbite affected Anthem. And that made our understanding of the industry better, and game development better. So I don't know. I guess because in my mind, and I get it, I'm a horrible person, but but the one thing that I can draw a one-to-one comparison with is concussions in football. Because I played football at a time when concussions were becoming a really big thing. Well, they were always a big thing, but they were becoming something where doctors were saying, hey, if your child is this age and it's right around high school age, they probably shouldn't be playing football, and stuff was coming out about the NFL suppressing stories about concussions. And coaches grew up in a culture where if you went fuzzy after a hit and you had a headache, it wasn't a concussion, you just got your bell rung. Mm-hmm. So get back out there, and all these coaches had to be told, no, what you're doing is destructive. But that threatened the culture, right? Yeah. And I think if you talk to a lot of 70-year-old high school football coaches today, there are probably a lot out there that would sound like this, instead of just admitting that some of the stuff they did was wrong and they probably shouldn't have done it. And I don't know. But these big, long explanations, I'm just not comfortable with, because it just sounds like, I don't know, hand-wringing, I guess, instead of just a more simple, apologetic tone. Especially for the people, because, and the effects that this had are not, the people that crunched, it wasn't like if you worked at Bethesda for a year and you crunched for 3 months, the effects of that crunch ended as soon as the crunch ended, right? Because how did it affect your family life? How did it affect your mental health? How did it affect your physical health? All that could have effects later on in life, right? If you got really depressed while you were crunching and then you had to take depression medication and you had to see therapy after that to dig yourself out of that, that could extend past the crunch. So it's like, that's why it's important to report on this stuff. So anyway, I think
you hit everything.
I didn't know maybe that angry, but I will say it's kind of funny that we talked a story about pirates and the next guy is Matt Booty.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Netherlands.
That's your one this podcast.
The Netherlands House of Representatives is calling for a loot box ban. This was announced in okay, so here's the thing about this story real quick. All right, so this story was reported by like Eurogamer. And Eurogamer linked to a website I'd never heard of. And then that website linked to Reset Era, right? And on Reset Era was another link to the Netherlands House of Representatives with a PDF. And this PDF is a motion. Problem. The motion was in Dutch. Now, I cannot speak Dutch. So I had to figure out how to translate this. So I put the motion because the person on Reset Era paraphrased it. and I don't know if this person just happened to be able to speak Dutch. So I put the motion into Google Translate. So what I'm about to read, that's a very long-winded way of saying, what I'm about to read is a Google translated version of a motion from the Netherlands House of Representatives. Quote, after hearing the debate, noting that children are manipulated in video games to microtransactions and that so-called loot boxes, there is also a form of gambling, noting that these transactions are addictive, calls on the government to look for a possibility to use these loot boxes in video games, also in the Netherlands, and for that purpose, were necessary to amend the law. So the translation's kind of janky, but the paraphrase is that they're looking to ban loot boxes. So that's my roundabout ways, and I'm saying all that because like I couldn't find it made me a little uncomfortable because I couldn't find the word ban in there. But I was like, all right, Eurogamer saying ban. I'll say on our podcast that the Netherlands House of Representatives is looking to ban, and apparently it's something that may pass. I know we've talked about loot boxes a lot.
Yeah.
I imagine the Netherlands is probably not a huge market.
Revenue.
EA doesn't want to lose
spot.
it. But if you asked EA, hey, Netherlands or United States, they probably wouldn't balk and say, oh, United States, we'd rather have,
Yeah. Well, so I can only assume from FIFA
I was about to say
that Europe is their number one. And if Finland is, or the Netherlands is the start of the one domino.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Then yeah.
Because I don't know how European Union law works, but if one country bans something like this, I do wonder how that affects the other countries around it. And I don't know anything about European geopolitics.
Why not? I'm kidding.
Because I am not a man of the world. So I don't know if it's fair to speculate that, but it certainly seems that way. Because like if Canada were to ban something and someone in the Netherlands is like, well, the United States is up next, I'd be like, yeah, you've got, yeah, right. but so I don't want to assume that about the EU, but that's what people seem to indicate. Yeah. And if that triggers across the EU, then that's when it's a problem for Electronic Arts. But yeah, I wish I understood more about European Union bureaucracy, and I'm not going to. So, but here's hoping that this triggers a ban that across the world, and loot boxes are banned everywhere.
Yeah, it'd be nice. And then you gotta. I do wonder if something like this were to catch fire, and of course, the dominoes fall, and we get bans on all sorts of loot boxes, including in the U.S. How companies, EA is the best example because they make most of the money through their loot boxes and stuff. How the games would change based on that. They're going to want to try to find another way to create consistent revenue stream. Well, yeah. They want to find a way to make consistent revenue streams from then on. But the old way they used to do it was advertisements in games. The late 90s, early 2000s, you drive around in crazy taxi and say, there's a KFC, there's a Tower Records. So, Burnout Paradise is vote for Barack Obama.
Wait, really? I didn't know this story.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Which
I lived it.
With EA having, the big seller of FIFA, advertising should be fairly easy in that game, especially with all the stadiums and all their advertising within the stadium.
It just sucks because, you see a majority of people when they talk about when you get the average person talk about something like this that they're not too familiar with, and they play something like Call of Duty Warzone or NBA, they'll complain about it while opening up their wallet to pull out their card,
Yeah.
So, I hate having to do this, and it's
yeah. It's just different contexts.
Yeah, because
that person may only play FIFA or NBA.
Right. So they
So
feel
to them, it's
worth
just
their
some-
time to invest in it.
and
instead.
so it's like to them, they're not thinking about the wider, and it's not like they should, because there are a million industries in the world that probably do shitty things like that, Like I'm sure there's somebody who is super passionate about cars or something.
Yeah.
And some new car out there has a feature that they think is lazy and dumb and it's a bad trend. And if you or I don't know about you, I'll speak for myself. If I go to a dealership, like I'm not going to know if this car has some trendy thing in it that, is bad for cars or something like that, And you could do that across industries, So so you can't blame people, and we had that discussion too a couple weeks ago. But it's also a fact. Loot boxes suck, and I have no sympathy for Electronic Arts, and they put themselves in this position where they had a sustainable business. They made it more lucrative with loot boxes, and now it's only sustainable with loot boxes, at least in their minds. So if they lose loot boxes, it's an existential crisis for them, and maybe they shouldn't have done that in the first place. So yeah, fuck 'em. A man discusses the news, but not like the big news, the little news. Little bit. This is the Tidbits.
Very dramatic. And Tyler had the look in his eyes like, are you gonna press?
I just want to let it hang for a minute.
just sort of, yeah, right. Richard!
Summer Games Done Quick has broken their donation record.
Yay.
And this is a great annual speedrunning event. Summer Games Done Quick, which is put on in Minneapolis, had their first in attendance SGDQ. Wow, since COVID started. SGDQ and GDQ raises money for different charities every year. Last year's SGDQ raised $2,938,700. Wait, shit. Almost $3 million for Doctors Without Borders. This year during the final stream for Elden Ring, the crowd became more rowdy as the new recorded total for SGDQ has now passed over $3 million. It was a wonderful, you can find the moment online when it started. It was really cool because they had finished the Elden Ring run. They were almost there, and then the numbers just start going faster and faster, and then everybody just starts like cheering. It was an awesome moment. Go check it out. It was the Elden Ring stream for Summer Games Done Quick. Brought a tear to my eye. It didn't, but I was great.
There's something really wholesome about speed running. I don't know what it is.
Anyone can be entertained by it. Anyone can get into it. Some of the most popular games to speedrun: Super Metroid, Castlevania, and Mega Man's. And of course, being in Castlevania, it's always fun being like seeing what someone can figure out and do.
Yeah,
in that
and how
game.
manipulate things in ways,
and how I can learn to manipulate things. through GDQ. I found out how to do a glitch to pass. There's a Castlevania Circle of the Moon. I hate this Castlevania. I'm not a fan of it. It's a good game, but I hate it. But you can do a glitch to get to Dracula at the end, but you're like above him and you're a little skeleton because you like kind of transmorify into a skeleton, and you throw a couple bones at him. But the thing about the skeleton form is that 1 in 4 chances that bone that you throw is like a mega bone and it's a critical hit.
Oh my god.
So you kill him in one hit and you level up like 40 times. And it's just like and then you go to the final boss. Anyways, it's fun to do. Anyways, Fire Emblem Heroes has made a lot of money for Nintendo. The Nintendo Soul mobile game, Fire Emblem Heroes is not their solo. They have Mario Kart Tour, but nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Sure.
Has become the new cash cow for Nintendo. It is revealed through the Sensor Tower metrics for cell phone games that Heroes has now made over $1 billion in revenue for Nintendo.
Wow.
Shutting down some of their other games a little too soon there, I think. But they're keeping Fire Emblem going.
We'll see how long Nintendo can keep up the family-friendly atmosphere.
Yeah, well, I mean,
before Breath of the Wild gets microtransactions, Breath of the Wild 2. Just kidding. We wouldn't want to.
They would make so much goddamn money. I know it's unfortunate when Nintendo fans with money is dangerous.
Yeah.
You remember 13, the game 13, the old PS2 game, and then the re-release season? It's getting remade again. 13. Wait, shit. 13 was a PS2 game.
Yeah.
Last year or the year before last year, I can't remember. It was remade, called 13 again. It was released last year from Studio Playmagic. Terrible results. On Steam, its rating is overwhelmingly negative. The publisher Microids has now removed Playmagic, the developers of it, from the title, and has now attached a new studio, Tower 5, to the 13 remake. And they said, quote, "We are fully aware and terribly sorry that the initial launch of the 13 remake on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC did not reach players' expected quality standards." Stephanie Longyeard, in a statement, said this. She continued with, "A bit more than a year ago, we took the decision to hire the studio Tower 5 to finish the development of the game. Tower 5 has worked with us in the past, notably on the great port of Agatha Christie, the ABC Murders on Nintendo Switch. We really wanted to take time to fix the game and offer owners of 13 Remake a free update, paying the best possible, paying the best possible tribute to the original game that we all love." We don't all love it. I'm just going to put that out there. It is a fine game. The original is a fine game. It's just not. And there's hints of really great stuff in there, particularly the art style. David Duchovny as the main character.
So it's kind of a cool game. Yeah, I think with the 13 remake, with the Grand Theft Auto remake, remaster, whatever it was,
disaster.
We're starting to see a little bit of sort of the bad side of this trend, I guess. Because why do bad remasters or remakes happen? And I'm assuming it has to do with because you don't want to spend a whole lot of money doing it or something like that. So yeah. So I'm glad it's a trend in video games that has started over the past 5 years. We're getting a Dead Space remake this year or maybe next year. I don't remember.
It's funny because it's we've had lots of remakes and remasters throughout the years, but like one of the first major ones, not first major ones, but the Crash Bandicoot remake of the first 3 games, excellent, and the Spyro one was also excellent. Everybody's like, do that. Rockstar is like, we're gonna take an Android port, take these guys who did the Android port, and then port it back to the console. So it's like, what?
I can't even imagine what will go into that. Yeah,
stupid. Anyway,
so lessons learned, right?
Take this game, hopefully, port it to an Android, port it to a toaster, port it back to an Android, then port it back.
Right.
And Prince of Persia is just in the corner. itch.io reveals a new bundle. This is the last tidbit of the night, but for $10, you can get a great bundle featuring over 700 games, like Mortician's Tale, Hypnospace Outlaw, Calico, and a bunch of others. Tabletop games like Printable PDF tabletop games and other indie games. All of the funds from this bundle specifically will be donated to a bunch of different abortion funds. So if you have a PC or interested in any of those types of tabletop games, $10 will get you this bundle, and of course, donation to a good cause.
You know that meme of the people sitting in a church, and it's like you have a dude, and then the person's pointing a pitol, pointing a pistol, and then the person pointing a sniper rifle. Yeah. It's like Steam sale, humble bundle, and then away at the back of the sniper rifle is itch.io, because itch.io releases ridiculous, like you get 1,000 games for like $5 or just crazy stuff. And that place is there's lots of gold. There's lots of really neat, really small stuff you can find on there. And I every few months I'll lose a couple hours.
Yeah, just browsing through. They have some neat VR stuff there too if you side quest your VR and
Yep. Okay. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse, where you can help support the channel and get access to our Discord server and all kinds of fun stuff. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.